I returned to my Aunt Diana's old house this Halloween, just to clear out the last of her belongings after she passed away. By the time I left the city, the sky had already turned to dusk, the sun sinking slowly behind the line of dead red-leaf trees, leaving behind a dull, yellow light, like it had been smothered in dust. The October wind carried the scent of rotting leaves and a chill that bit into my skin. On both sides of the highway, kids in costumes were running everywhere. Their laughter mixed with the clatter of candy hitting the ground. Everything was loud and alive in that peculiar Halloween way. But the farther I drove from the neighborhoods, the thinner the streetlights became, until there was only the pale moonlight spilling across the rough, cracked road like a torn piece of fabric. When my tires hit the dirt road leading into the woods, the air changed instantly. Fog began to rise, curling around the black oak trunks like smoke. Each time I flicked my headlights to high beam, the light reached only a few meters before it was swallowed whole by the mist. The smell of mold and cold earth crept into the car through the window gap, and sometimes I swore I could hear faint footsteps pacing alongside me, keeping pace with the car. I told myself it was just the wind. My aunt's house sat at the very end of the road, a small wooden place, old and sagging, the roof streaked with moss, the windows boarded up with dark planks. It stood out against the fog like a black shape that breathed, slowly, quietly. The porch light flickered, winking in and out with every gust of wind. I remembered how, as a kid, that light had always terrified me, because every time it went out, I swore I saw someone standing outside the fence. The air here was thick, so thick you could feel it on your skin. Heavy, damp, and clinging, like the fog wanted to crawl into your lungs. I stepped out of the car, my shoes sinking into the wet, rotting leaves, releasing the sour stench of decay. For a moment, I thought I heard whispering, soft, almost like voices carried from deep in the woods. The house was just as I remembered, maybe worse. The wooden door cracked and splintered, the paint peeling off in strips. Inside, the curtains hung crooked, and on the window ledge, a wooden owl figurine sat with its head broken, its face drooping downward as if it were watching me. When I stepped onto the porch, the boards groaned long and low beneath my weight, and the front door swung open by itself, without me touching it. A draft of cold air seeped out, bringing with it the acrid scent of preservative chemicals and dried fur, the unmistakable odor of taxidermy. Since I was little, I had always felt something off about this place. Not the kind of off that makes you curious, but the kind that tells you to never, ever stay the night. Aunt Diana had been a taxidermist. People in town used to say she collected souls, that every animal she stuffed still carried a flicker of life inside. While cleaning the living room, under a pile of old blankets and framed pictures, I found a small wooden box tied shut with rusted wire. The lid had been crudely carved with the words, "Coffin closet tapes, keep closed." I didn't know why, but something inside me needed to open it. Maybe because it was Halloween, or maybe because I thought it was just old footage of her work. Inside were a dusty VHS camcorder, a few tapes, and a yellowed sheet of paper. The handwriting was shaky, almost carved into the paper itself. Each tape captures the final moment of a soul. Watch if you must, but never watch the third one. I chuckled at first, until I noticed that the last line wasn't written in ink, but in dried blood. I carried the camcorder to the living room and hooked the cables into the old Toshiba TV, the only thing in the house that still worked. When I pressed play, the screen flickered, hissed, and finally showed the image of a gray hospital room. The IV line swayed gently. The fluorescent light flickered. My aunt appeared on screen, at least 20 years younger, wearing a white lab coat, her hair tied neatly back. She was sitting beside a frail woman whose breathing came in harsh, shallow gasps. The heart monitor beeped weakly. Beep, beep, until the sound stretched into a long, suffocating flatline. The screen shook slightly, and the woman's rasping breaths filled the room, so heavy, I found myself holding my own breath. My aunt leaned down and whispered, voice trembling. Please, say something, if you're still here. A pause. Then from the TV's speakers came a crackling distortion, like fingernails scraping a tape head. A moment later, a voice, female, hoarse, buried deep in the throat, spoke slowly. Not gone yet. I slammed the power button. My heart was pounding, my throat dry. The room was silent again, dead silent. Only the wind whistled through the cracked window frame, making the curtain billow like something breathing behind it. Then, tap, tap. A sound came from the end of the hall, like claws scraping wood. Once, twice, then again, coming from the taxidermy room. I swallowed hard, grabbed my flashlight, and crept closer. The door was slightly ajar, the hinges squealing in protest. The beam of light swept across rows of stuffed animals, dozens of glass eyes reflecting back at me like tiny mirrors. In the center of the room stood a large brown hunting dog, standing upright, its head tilted slightly. I remembered clearly. It had been lying in the corner last night, covered in a thick layer of dust. Not anymore. I stumbled backward, hitting a wooden shelf. A frame fell, shattering on the floor. It was a photo of my aunt, smiling kindly. But behind her stood another figure, blurred, its face completely obscured, except for two hollow black eyes. I turned back to the dog. Its glass eyes were no longer clear, but pitch black, as if painted over. In the faint reflection, I saw my own face, but the mouth was open wide, grinning. I bolted from the taxidermy room, my pulse pounding in my ears. But when I reached the end of the hallway, my aunt's bedroom door creaked open with a dry click. From inside spilled a faint red glow. Not the kind of red from a lamp, but the kind you'd get if you shone light through blood. The air grew heavy again, thick with the metallic scent of rust and old disinfectant. On the desk inside, a VHS player was already on, and the second tape sat waiting inside. Its red indicator light blinked, reflecting off the dust like an eye opening and closing. I don't know why. Maybe something else inside me moved my hand, but I pressed play. The screen lit up, static buzzing. My aunt appeared again, older this time, haggard, her hair disheveled, dark circles under her eyes. In front of her lay an old man, barely breathing. She leaned close, whispering something I couldn't make out. Then, suddenly, the man's eyes snapped open. His pupils were milky white, his lips trembling. A hoarse, guttural voice came out. She's still here, under the floor. She's hungry. The camera fell. The frame tilted, spinning, and caught my aunt crawling backward, crying, trembling, whispering over and over. No, no, I buried her. I buried her. Then the screen went black. Only a faint, static hiss remained, like someone whispering far away. I felt cold air brush the back of my neck, wet and metallic. Then, from the corner of the room, came the sound of claws scraping again, slow, deliberate. I turned. The wardrobe doors burst open with a shriek, and something crawled out, wet, black, mud dripping from its limbs. The stench of earth and rot filled my throat. It didn't move fast, just inch by inch, but every time it did, the floor groaned like bones snapping. I ran. My footsteps echoed down the hallway, chased by the sound of those dragging claws. I burst out onto the porch, gulping the cold air, then froze. In my hand, without realizing, I was holding another VHS tape. Old, damp, the label smeared but still legible in crimson ink. Tape 3, Don't Watch Alone. It was freezing cold, wet, and dripping. Somewhere in my mind, I heard my aunt's voice, faint and muffled, as though coming from under layers of soil. Don't watch the third one. I'm holding it now, here on the table, under the flickering orange Halloween light. Outside, I hear a soft tapping on the window. 3 slow knocks. And I swear I saw someone's reflection in the glass. Long wet hair, gray skin, and a smile I've seen before. In my dream last night. I tried to throw the tape away. I did. I opened the door, meaning to toss it into the pile of leaves on the porch. But my hand trembled too much to let go. Something inside me wanted to watch it. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something worse. When I pushed it into the player, the static hissed like someone breathing against my ear. The screen was black, dotted with white flecks, like rain in the dark. Then the image appeared. Not a hospital, not a dying person. It was this room, right now. The camera seemed to be set across from me, pointed at the same chair I was sitting in. The light flickered, the frame tilted, and in the center sat a woman with her back turned. Long wet hair clung to her shoulders, her blouse stained with dirt. I leaned closer and realized the faded white coat she wore was my aunt's. I reached to stop the tape, but the screen shook violently, the sound distorted into a low, wet groan. My aunt turned her head slowly, the red glow of the screen washing over her sunken face. Her eyes were deep, black hollows. Her mouth twisted open, and her voice came out, drawn and strangled. "It's not gone, David." I jumped to my feet, heart hammering. The lights in the house went out, leaving only the faint red glow from the TV. And in that light, I realized my shadow wasn't moving. I stepped back. The shadow stayed still. Then, slowly, it turned its head. A grin spread across its face, unnaturally wide, stretching to the ears. I threw the knife in my hand at the wall and ran for the door. But the doorknob was slick, wet, as if coated in blood. I couldn't turn it. Panicking, I looked back. The TV now showed me, sleeping in my bed last night. Next to me, a dark figure sat, leaning close, its long black fingers touching my throat. I screamed, smashing the screen. Blood from my hand mixed with the shards of glass. But in the reflection on the broken pieces, it wasn't me. It was my aunt, smiling. From the taxidermy room came the sound of scratching again. Then, the dog barking, weakly, choking until it stopped. The fridge door swung open by itself, spilling a mist of cold air. Inside lay another VHS tape. No label, no writing. Only a single red handprint pressed on the surface. I didn't dare touch it, but the tape slid forward on its own, as if someone inside was pushing it out. And I swear to God, I heard my aunt whisper right behind me. "We're not finished yet, David. There's one more." Right then, a cold hand settled on my shoulder. The first thing I felt was the freezing sting, like being plunged into ice water. Then I realized the skin was dry, papery, stretched tight over bone. The fingers were long, crooked, the nails rough and cracked, digging lightly into my flesh. Not enough to break skin, just enough to let me feel every brittle joint moving. The smell of mold and decay filled the air as the breath brushed against my ear, followed by a low, rasping chuckle from inside the wall itself. Everything went black. When I woke up, the clock read 3:17 a.m. I was lying on the floor, head pounding, bruises on my neck in the shape of fingers. The TV in front of me flickered to life, showing a feed from the front door camera. Outside, someone was standing there. Long wet hair, one hand holding the final tape. The screen glitched. 3 slow knocks echoed through the house, and then everything went dark. I'm writing this now by the dim light of my phone. I can hear faint scratching from behind me. Close, too close, just behind the wall. If I stop updating after this, then maybe someone else has already watched the 4th tape for me.